When it comes to video game urban legends, you are not always so lucky as to actually get kind of a lot of lore about said legend. But in the case of Shadow Bonnie, we actually get a little more than meets the eye. And of course, speculation. Let me get into it. If you've been around the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise for a minute, you have more than likely heard the name Shadow Bonnie. If you haven't, let you in on this video game urban legend. The Shadow Bonnie legend is an urban legend revolving around the 2014, can you believe it, 11 years ago, point and click survival horror video game Five Nights at Freddy's 2. Ever heard of it? I sure have. However, FNAF 2 is actually not the only game that Shadow Bonnie appears in. It also appears in Five Nights at Freddy's 3, Five Nights at Freddy's 4, its 2018 sequel, Ultimate Custom Night, and 2019 augmented reality Five Nights at Freddy's AR special delivery. However, I still want to focus on the first time we ever laid eyes on this beauty. And that was, as I mentioned before, in Five Nights at Freddy's 2. There was one way that you could possibly encounter Shadow Bonnie, and it went like this. When the player lowers the monitor, there is a 1 in 16,960 chance that a black-colored version of Toy Bonnie, and later believed to be Spring Bonnie, by the way, anyway, appears in the office. If the player just stares at them for 4 seconds, they will fade away, and then the game will crash. So, quite anticlimactic, but quite typical FNAF at the same time. We also have Golden Freddy that can crash your game. Lots of people do it. It's nothing new, Shadow Bonnie. Get your own gig. However, if the player immediately wears the Freddy Fazbear head, pulls up the monitor, or shines the flashlight at it, it will fade away and not crash the game. So, there are ways to deal with it, but you might be so surprised to see it because what is this? I know that we certainly were when we first encountered Shadow Bonnie, and we had no idea what it was. Like any good video game legend, of course. And since we didn't know much about it, we started calling it, or people started calling it, Shadow Bonnie due to it being black in color, really. I think that's the only reasoning. And the game files called it something quite interesting. I'm just gonna go by it letter for letter because I have no idea how you would say this. Probably sounds like a sneeze, but whatever. It's RWQFSFASXC. I remember not really even believing that it was a real thing when the game first came out, sort of thinking that it might be sort of the same thing as Sparky the dog, that being nothing more than really like a spoof, because I thought that the Rafkash name was kind of silly, and I was like, yeah, whatever, we're trying too hard to find lore, but that's like somebody made that up. I quickly changed my mind when I saw people actually encountering the Oddfellow. And I might be taking this from out of a dream or something, but I feel like I might have encountered him too. But like I said before, the chances are so super slim that perhaps I made that up. Anyway, moving on. It honestly truly became a canon character to me in Five Nights at Freddy's 3. Because in the end of night minigame that starts after beating night 4, Shadow Bonnie reappears, standing inside the right side box in the West Hall and watching Shadow Freddy luring Foxy. On night 5, Shadow Bonnie will appear in the office desk as a very little figurine. Where'd you get that? I kinda want that, but I digress. Double-clicking it triggers the glitch minigame, which fits pretty well with his previous crashing the game in FNAF 2, so apparently that's glitch, and everything to do with Shadow Bonnie is just a match made in heaven, or hell, either way. In the glitch minigame, Shadow Bonnie appears purple instead of black, and face shifts or glitches through various minigames. The minigame also features a purple room, and below that, the soul of Jeremy can be triggered by the S key. If the player flies towards the stage 01 room's exit, the minigame will end. But going top left of BB's air adventure, Shadow Bonnie can actually leave the room. When getting to the bottom of the purple room, if the player has collected the cake from Mangle's quest, Shadow Bonnie will give Jeremy a cake. Good for him! Making him available for the Happiest Day minigame. Due to the spring lock accident mentioned in the game, These employees from the incident were actually first believed to be Shadow Freddy and Bonnie, but that theory was sort of later discarded, even though I kind of did believe it for a long time, and I think it fits quite well because it's so dark. I mean, everything is so dark, but also sort of forgettable. Like, the focus is definitely on the kids, so therefore I feel like they are only a shadow those employees of the horrible accidents, not accidents at all actually, that has happened at Freddy Fazbear's, but whatever. I've also heard many speculate that it might have been the bite victim, or perhaps both bite victims, with both Shadow Freddy and Bonnie, but that information, as far as I'm concerned, is also still unanswered, so there. Now, I know I said that Shadow Bonnie appears in Five Nights at Freddy's 4 as well, but that's not entirely true. Shadow Bonnie doesn't appear, but a shadow of Spring Bonnie from minigames is sort of like mistaken for Shadow Bonnie. It's even said it's related to Shadow Bonnie, even if it's just a shadow. The most famous example is from Dream Theory, so not quite like a physical appearance, but he's always there in our hearts, isn't he? And maybe we should get that checked out, because I don't know if it's so good to have Shadow Bonnie running around, but I digress once again. However, in Ultimate Custom Night, Shadow Bonnie returns as one of the several non-selectable characters that can be summoned by the dang DD. It will appear in the office and emit thick black fog, which will cover the entire office for about 10 seconds, causing the player to be unable to see the doors or vent doors. And if you have ever played Ultimate Custom Night, you kind of know that you need to be able to see these things, so kind of a huge problem. I don't think I've ever been lucky, or I guess unlucky enough to get him in Ultimate Custom Night though, so perhaps I have that going for me or I don't. And you know, if you guys have been on the channel for a moment, you know that I don't particularly know or care, I know I'm mean, about FNAF AR special delivery, but even though I don't, I still know that Shadow Bonnie makes his appearance in an interesting and sort of confusing way to me. Shadow Bonnie is almost confirmed to be an agony entity. It's like its Fazbear Fright's counterpart, since it only appears when a lot of shadow remnants are collected. And I have no idea what agony entities or shadow remnants are, but hello, hi. That's cool. But then Shadow Bonnie completely appears as a hostile entity until his previous appearances. And this guy's he's not happy, it would seem. And so even if the player manages to defeat Shadow Bonnie, it will disappear and leave a black cloud of agony. Perhaps a literal one. He really just does not want us to have nice things. Crashing the game, leaving, clouds of agony, just rude, what? But now I have told you about the times that he has actually appeared in games. At least to my knowledge. But since there are many theories and mysteries about it, it can be quite difficult to pin down what Shadow Bonnie is, or even was in the past. But some of the discussions are often going about whether or not he was created due to the missing children incident, or the dead children incident, or another event. And its glitch minigame character is actually seemingly a glitch trap theory, which means that the theory of its origin with that theory took many years to figure out, or at least ponder, because I mean, we didn't know that glitch trap was even a thing back in the day when FNAF 2 was created, but I actually kind of like that one. I think it's pretty cool. The theory is that Shadow Bonnie is a game version of like the Eleanor theory, it being good, evil, or neutral, and many things that make it enigmatic. However, it is still an uncertain myth. And that's what I love about it, to be honest. Some of my favorite video game lore in general is stuff that has never been figured out, or that some people are still attempting to figure out. It just gives the game even more to like just ponder and figure out, and maybe there is no meaning, but honestly, knowing Five Nights at Freddy's, I feel like there's definitely meaning. And maybe I'm honestly ignorant to some of the theories. I would love to hear them, and just please tell me what you guys think about Shadow Bonnie in general. But with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will hopefully see you in the next video. Goodbye!